This afternoon we have a special guest, and it's an appearance from Professor Phil Blythe, who is the Chief Scientific Advisor still, I think, to the Department for Transport, who was with us in person this time last year, but I have to say, this time last year was looking like a very busy man on his phone as the scientific community was rallying round and trying to work out what we were going to do if this dreadful coronavirus shipped up on our shores, which of course it did. Here we are 12 months on. Hopefully we're seeing a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm delighted to invite Phil to give us a bit of a sense of, well, he asked us for help, how well did we do? And then looking ahead, what would he like us to be doing to make sure that we do come out of this better and stronger? Phil, a delight to have you here. What do you think?
Okay, thanks, Steve. Good to be here. Look, I apologize that you can't see me. I'm on the phone. For Chief Scientific Advisor, I couldn't get my ARAP Microsoft Teams to work, but never mind. Yes, as Steve said, I was with you a year ago in Bristol, talking about ITS and basically challenging the ITS community to step up and really help us, particularly with data on who's moving where and the like, so we can actually understand better movements and look at risks of COVID. I mean, you talk about COVID. I had my first stage meeting in early January 2020, when there was some weak signals that there might be a problem in China. And gosh, look where it's got us now. But what I would say is, when I challenged the community in Bristol, I must say I was really impressed at how you stepped up to support the DFT and the country in general with our response to COVID. What was really, really important, this time last year, was we hadn't actually gone into lockdown. The Prime Minister the following week was going to announce that we need to engage with other people less, and what we didn't have is any ability to work out whether that was going to happen, whether social distancing was going to happen. So the only two sorts of data that we had to really help us understand that was data from travel, who's traveling, how many people on public transport, how many people in their cars, etc., and from credit card transactions and card transactions about who's where, who's buying what service, and the like. And having that transport data was hugely helpful. The amount of organizations and individuals who came and offered data and suggested where data could be brought together to help us was really, really significant. Identifying new data sources, repurposing old solutions, and also helping to set up virtual data analysis. And we used all of that. And if you think about those dark days of the 5 p.m. briefings by the PM and the other ministers, the first slide that always came up was transport. What's happening with transport? How many people are traveling? And therefore, can we assume that compliance with social distancing was actually happening? Because all the modelling, the SPI-M modelling, which is part of SAGE, based all the assumptions on an 80% compliance rate. And we could only see that through how people were travelling. I mean, some of the highlights, I think, vivacity, measuring travel flows, and also providing video images of how far apart people were when they were walking down the street. The link between those two people turned from red if it was less than 2 meters, amber if it was 2 to 3 meters, and green if it was above 3 meters. So we could actually see whether people were taking social distancing seriously. I think about the COVID data digest that was run by ARAP, a weekly data collection, which was absolutely fantastically helpful, collecting that data from local authorities, because we were looking at data nationally, but we really needed to understand what was happening in individual local authorities as we were considering having local lockdowns as we did later on. And also some of the video analytics of actually looking at how people were connecting in public transport. The Newcastle Urban Observatory did that, and that's part of a UKRI project, TRACK, which is developing risk models for transmission on public transport from COVID. And this input also helped the DFT to really rethink how do they use data, how do they use their data flows. When we first started trying to provide this data to number 10 for the 5 o'clock briefings, I was actually shocked how little data on transport the Department for Transport actually has, and how much we had to beg, steal and borrow. We had to renationalise the buses and the rail for a period to get their data. And what we have now is an absolutely amazing set. We understand transport far better. We understand the number of people on the trains, on the tubes, on the buses. In fact, we did things like we measured strain gauges on TfL tube trains on the axles to actually determine and make a guess at how busy those particular trains were. So we're coming through COVID, thank goodness. It's not going to go away anytime soon, but things are getting better. There's clearly a light at the end of the tunnel. But I think the pandemic has really raised some real questions about, as a society, how can we do transport better, and what can the ITS community do to help that? We think about people naturally now thinking of video conferencing as a key way of doing business and personal connections. We think about the repurposed roads in the centre of cities and towns to pedestrians, cyclists, and micromobility. And we also think about the left behind places and those cities, towns, and other places where there's going to be significant unemployment, and we really need to work out ways of ensuring transport exists in a way to help people have an economic radius of opportunity to get from A to B for employment opportunities, training and education. So I think what ITS has delivered is fantastic. I think you stepped up. I think we understand transport much better, whether that be public transport, how it's running, patronage on public transport, how our roads are operating and where people are going to and from. All that sort of data helps us think that we could have a really integrated transport management system far, far better than we've had in the past. And if we can do that, and if we can make the business case for that, that's going to deliver on some of the key challenges that we have around decarbonisation, because it's going to help with things like demand management, with levelling up. And also, I think, because there are different ways of doing this, I think very much a focus on place-based solutions, play to the strengths and the capabilities and facilities that people have. But as I say, at the heart of this is the technology and the innovations and just the hard work that everybody in the community put in to really feel they were helping to be part of the solution with COVID. And I can't thank you enough for that. And I think going forward, I think we can learn an awful lot from what you did as a community, and I think we can take it forward and really show better to the DFT and others the role that ITS plays in managing transport and making better lives for people. So on that, I'm sorry I couldn't attend the conference. Things have been a tad busy back at base, but when I stepped down as from Chief Scientific Advisor role at the end of May this year, I really hope to engage back with the ITS community more, because there's an awful lot to do. But I think it's a really exciting time for the community and look forward to being part of it. Thank you.